All right, guys, what is up? Welcome to Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs like you who are looking to go to the next level. I am your host, Junior Frederick, and I'm here with the man himself, Mr. Bobby Stealth. And today we're going to get into a little bit of branding and also into a little bit of leadership. Brandon, Bobby, how you doing?
I'm doing
I
great,
said
Junior.
Brandon.
I'm doing
Yes,
absolutely
sir.
phenomenal. This morning was an interesting morning for me. It's Mother's Day weekend here for me. We did it early. So my wife is out on vacation, living her best life. So I'm home with all the kids. And it's interesting being the dad with all the kids and then seeing everything that mom does. So we've got 5 children here. So this has been a reflective day for me on my leadership, because I went down to the kitchen and I was like, dishes. Wife makes sure those are cleaned, something that I take for granted sometimes. I walk to the kids' bedrooms, kind of checking on them. Kids are asleep, things that the wife makes sure is done. So it was really interesting for me to just get that extended appreciation for the team. So that's how I'm feeling this morning, is like, wow, never take the small things for granted. Be a good leader, be a great team player. And one of the best ways to know what the other team member is doing is by doing it yourself. So I'm feeling super reflective, super grateful, and very excited.
Bobby, I think that's a great way to start, man. We're gonna be talking about leadership, and leadership to me doesn't mean sitting somewhere that's like you're distanced and you're so far off and so cut off from everything. To me, leadership means having walked that path before, being able to guide somebody down a path that you yourself have walked before. So it's very interesting to see how leadership dynamics transcend business and work its way into all areas of our life. So definitely. By the way, to all of the moms looking, I want to say an early happy Mother's Day to you. In fact, let me give a few shout outs. I see Tia. Tia, shout out to you. Tia says, great Saturday. Everyone have a blessed week. Ahead from New Jersey, Dr. Michelle D. Clark. She says, superbly sensational Saturday. Bobby, I think Dr. Michelle should like put together a small book with all of these sayings. I
Yeah.
really think you should, Dr. Michelle, just put together a little book and put together all of those things, all of those sayings that you normally put in there. And of course, I want to shout out Bradley Hoover coming in from Texas, phenomenal all. Yeah, today's Saturday, man. We're gonna get into something really, really good. We've been hitting branding and leadership all week long. I feel like we can never get too deep into these topics. So,
Mhm.
guys, we're gonna go to a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna kick off with branding. We're gonna kick off with leadership. Of course, if you have any questions, please reserve the questions and put them in the chat. When Bobby and I come back, we're gonna get right into it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in a minute.
I said Sean Rais. I'm proud. I said Sean Rais. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire, heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business.
We are the brand. Some people say, Sean, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold in your beliefs.
He has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, 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 guys. Welcome back. Welcome back. Bobby, let's jump right into it. The topic is branding and the topic is leadership. I'm interested to see, what angle we take this morning.
Yes, yes. As a my junior, one of the things that I wrote down as we were talking and just conversating was leaders lead from the front. Leaders lead from the front. Now, that's a military term that we use in the Marine Corps. And what it means to me is that if you haven't done everything you need to do for you, how can you do anything for anyone else? Now, that's an interesting concept to think about when you are a leader, because a lot of times the leader tries to do everything for everybody else before doing what they need to do for themselves. And then they find themselves behind, or they find themselves scrambling, or they find themselves out of pocket, and their subordinates are taken care of, so to speak. But because the leader isn't in proper position, then the leader can't lead them. So what I was writing down and just thinking about as a brand and as a leader is, if you're going to be a brand and a leader, then you've got to be ahead of your industry. You've got to be a thought leader. You've got to be someone that knows where business is going, or at least where your business is going, and how you want to influence its direction. And then you've got to take care of you, meaning your brand's positioning, and how you are conveying yourself in the marketplace, so that those that come under you to assist you have a foundation and an example. So I really thought that was interesting as we dive deeper into building brands. You are the brand, and being a brand leader.
Interesting. So, brand leadership. What does that mean? There are so many ways you could look at that. Um, One of the ways that I like to think about it is just in the literal sense, like your brand being a leader. That means being a leader in your particular space. So, what does it mean to be a leader? There's multiple ways you could look at that. A leader is someone that can lead other people, can direct other people, but a leader also means number one. Now, when we talk about brand leadership, we're talking about being number one and also being able to help other people. Because, Bobby, you can be number one, but you don't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make you a brand leader? Right? Or you could be helping people, but then you're not number one. You're not the best at what you do. Does that also make you a brand leader? So for me, it's all about being able to have the best of both worlds. I'm the kind of person, guys, I believe that you can have it all. I believe that you can have your cake and eat it too. Otherwise, why have the cake? Bobby. So I believe you can be fit, you can have a great marriage, you can raise phenomenal children, you could have a thriving business, you could do all of that stuff. You could be a brand leader. I believe you can do. I believe you can do it all. But where does it start? And I want to sort of pass it back to you and ask you from your perspective or your perception. Let's just play a game of perceptions here and perspectives. From your perspective, Bobby, where do you think brand leadership begins? Now, I'm going to give my perspective when you're done. I'm going to give it from a marketing perspective because that's my background. And then you could take it any way that you like. But let's just give the people various perspectives on the same subject.
Yeah. Where does brand leadership begin? It's a great question. For me, I would say doing what you can do, that you should do, that you would do. Now let me put it in order. Doing the things that you know you can do, that you would do if you could do them, and that you should do. So would, should, and can. I believe that's where leadership and brand leadership begins, because there's a lot of things we know we should do, but we don't do them. We can do them, and we know we should do them, but we still don't do them. And we would do them if we could do them, but we still don't do them. And that, I believe, is the breakdown of leadership. It is the inability to do, or the reluctance to do those things that we know should be done. And I think that from there we get procrastination, from there we get laziness, from there we get all of these different things. Every time we don't do what we know we should do. So to keep it simple, I would say branding, brand leadership begins with obeying one's convictions. So when you know something is right, or you have been enlightened about something, or you've learned the truth about something, doing the doing that, acting in truth and not deviating from truth, is the beginning of brand leadership for me.
Nice, nice. So I'm gonna take a different route and go a more technical route. So how do you actually become a leader in your space? Like, what does that even mean? Now, how many of you put it in the chat? How many of you, if you have to send something, let's say I'm sending something from Texas to New York, and I want it to get there quickly. What do I say? What do I say, Bobby? If I want to send something, say that again.
You would say probably FedEx or Express something.
Very good, very good. And if I'm looking to keep something clean, I'm looking to clean a surface. What would I clean a surface with? I don't know if you're gonna get that one.
Yeah, I would say you've got Windex, maybe. That's a very big one. Or you may say surface, depending on what it is.
All
Clorox
right,
is what
all right, there you go.
Michelle said.
Dr. Michelle got it. So, okay. Now, guys, people, when they want to send something quickly, if I want to send something quickly, I say I'm going to FedEx it. FedEx is not a verb. I don't know if you guys know this, but FedEx is not a verb. FedEx is a brand. Clorox is a brand. In my country, there's a dishwashing liquid called Squeezy. I don't know if you guys have it in your country. No, so there's a joke in my country. Like there are like 10 different um, dishwashing liquid brands, and every time we go to the store, you tell somebody I need to get a bottle of Squeezy. Doesn't matter what brand you buy, it's a bottle of Squeezy.
Yeah.
So why is that? That's called top of mind awareness. So write this down. Write down TOMA, top of mind awareness. So for me, brand leadership means being able to have that sort of top of mind awareness where you're staying at the top of your mind of your ideal client, and you overshadow and you overpower and you dominate the other brands in your industry. Okay, so if I want to send something, I just say I FedEx it, and everybody knows what I mean because everybody knows what that brand represents because they are top of mind. The question becomes, how does one become top of mind? How does one become top of mind? Like, I bet you, if I say name a famous brand of, let's say, like shavers, put it in the chat. Just put a famous brand of like shavers or toothpaste. Go ahead, put a famous brand of toothpaste. When I say toothpaste, what comes to your mind, Bobby? Most
Colgate.
people, exactly, Colgate. Most people is only one thing. So it's the same thing for Colgate. We go to buy different toothpaste. We say we're gonna get a tube of Colgate, even if the brand that we buy is not Colgate. So the question becomes like, how do you become that brand where you become a leader in your industry and then you become top of mind? I believe that begins by recognizing and by filling a gap in the market. So you have to find an unfulfilled need, okay, or a gap in experience, something that makes you different. In business, we call it a unique value proposition. Like what is unique about you? And when people ask me about the unique value proposition or what we call the USP, unique selling point, I put it to them like this. Answering the question of the unique selling point means answering the question of why should I do business with you as opposed to all other options, including doing nothing. Let me say that again. Why should I do business with you, right? As opposed to all other options, including the option of watching Netflix, including the option of going to the park, including the option of just doing absolutely nothing. when you can answer that question for your brand, and when you could implement whatever that solution is, I believe that that is the first step to becoming top of mind and starting to establish what we call brand leadership.
Nice. Junior, that breakdown was really clear to me. And I can see that a lot of people in the comments are liking the direction that we're going with this. So as we dive deeper into the only viable option piece, this how do you become the leader in an industry? I think another thing to keep in mind is when you do this right, you're really creating a monopoly. You're creating a monopoly. And a monopoly is one of the best ways to stay in business because it allows you to set your own prices. So when we say what's the beginning of brand leadership, I think it also begins with a technical mindset. And the technical mindset should be that of if I can't be number one or number two, then I'm just not going to do it. Like, it's just not worth it. Now, what does that logic say from a branding and leadership standpoint? It means if you can't position your brand in a way to earn such a large majority of your market, that you're the leader and the number one in that market, then what's the point? So I think of it from a needs analysis standpoint, is it does how many people need what I have? And then from there I say, okay, based on the amount of people that need what I have, how many of them can I uniquely provide this service to? And once I figured out how many I can uniquely provide the service to, it then becomes a matter of speed. How quickly can I provide this service to them? And that's when we start getting into concepts like blitz scaling. And we're not going to go too deep into that, but because we're having a technical conversation, that's how I think about it. From a financial and business monopolistic standpoint, is I'm saying to myself, I need to position my brand effectively. So if I'm a coach and I'm coaching a group of veterans, then my question is, how many veterans need what I'm coaching them on? How quick can I provide the service to the amount of veterans that need it? If so, how quickly can I get this service to them and begin dominating that market? And then from there, is the market growing? If the market is growing, how do I need to position my brand in order to create a monopoly within the market as it grows? And those are the brands that stick around, because that's what we saw with Apple. Apple says, what do the people need? The people needed to be able to personalize their progress. Like what Steve Jobs wanted to do is he wanted to take the office and the advancements of the corporation and put them into the hands and the homes of the people. So that was kind of the challenge. So he said, how many people out there? Okay, great. Got a good number of people out there. Then he said, what product do they need in order to be able to achieve their goal? They need a easy to use desktop, because back then the computers used to be in like warehouses, tons of computers, and you had to like get it into your room. So he's like, okay, it needs to be compact, it needs to be easy to use. Right now, laptops and computers are very intimidating, so it needs to be simple. Once he figured out that it needed to be simple and that he needed to get it to this many people, the next thing he said to himself is, what do we have to do now in order to be number one? And he's figured out innovate. We have to be innovative and simple. So he kept everything one button, super sleek, one homepage, innovative and simple. And that for me is brand leadership from a monopoly standpoint, is thinking about, okay, I'm positioning the brand, I am building the brand, and I'm also going to be able to corner the market with this. So that's my take on what you were sharing from your side of the house, because the top of mind awareness is crucial, and actually understanding that you're building a monopoly and having that as a part of your strategy is also crucial, because that's what helped Apple win, is speed to market. They knew what they had to do and they got there faster. They got there first.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, speed is one part. I think as long as you could do something cheaper, better, or faster, then you could disrupt the market. So cheaper, faster, and better. So how can I do it cheaper? And cheaper, and let me not say cheap. All right, so it's not cheap in terms of quality, it's cheap in terms of price. So if Bobby can do something for, let's say, $1,000, and I could do the same thing with the same quality for $500, I could do it faster than him, and I could do it just better than him. Like the overall experience is better, then I can disrupt that particular market. So less expensive, faster, and also just overall better. And I think a lot of people should be thinking about that, especially if you want to go in and establish brand leadership, then that is definitely something that you want to think about. Guys, we're going to take one more break. In fact, we're going to take our second break. And then when we come back, we'll be diving into leadership. Stay tuned.
Confidence is key. Most of the people I work with, they have the education, the experience, and the expertise. We call those the 3 E's. But they're looking for the 3 I's, the income, the impact, and the independence. And I always tell them that the bridge between the 3 E's and the 3 I's is marrying your confidence to your competence. Most of the people I work with, again, have all of the competence in the world. What I help them do is get the confidence. When I think of brand you, I think of being your best self, your most authentic. The reason why we were able to crush business, absolutely dominate in business without having the marketing list, without having the email huge list, without having the Facebook ads and the advertising budget, without knowing the algorithm. The reason we were able to do this is because I branded myself. I told my authentic story and I was comfortable in my skin. Why? Because it was that time in the world where everything was shifting. It was 2020, March. So you remember what happened during that time. It was like the world was coming to an end. So you didn't have anything to hold back. So I chose to give everything that I had and be everything that I am. And because I was that, because I branded me, because I was authentic, everything shifted and people wanted more. And they wanted to know more about me and how they could become more comfortable in their skin. Listen, guys, when you brand you and not what you do, you're gonna add a 0 to the world, but you'll also add a 0 to your revenue. Let's grow.
All right, guys, so we are back. If you've enjoyed the show so far, go ahead and put some flames in the comments. I see flames coming already. Shout out to Joel Smith. I'm going to read a few of these comments, so just keep putting them in. So Dr. Michelle says, for the less expensive, how does... All right, so this is the question. By the way, if you have a question, before you write it, just put a Q. So put a capital Q next to your question so we know that it's a question. Okay, so Dr. Michelle says, for the less expensive, how does that correlate to adding a 0? Okay, so I can answer that question. Do you want to go first, Bobby, or you want me to answer that first?
I'll go first, Junior, because I think you're going to simplify it. I feel like what I'm about to say is going to be a little deep, so I would love for you to give the breakdown or the translation. So from my side of the house, like finance-wise and economics-wise, if you can produce a product less expensively, the vocabulary word here is going to be economies of scale. Economies of scale. What economies of scale normally means is that you have a cost of production, and then you also have a quantity purchased. So if you produce, or if people purchase a smaller number, but that cost of production is fixed. So please pay attention. If you've got a fixed cost of production and you have a certain number of products purchased, the larger number of products purchased over that fixed production cost, the cheaper it is to do business, because you're producing way more for a fixed cost price. The cost of production is fixed. So it's one number. Let's say it's 100. If you produce 200 items, that means it costs you, say, 50 cents, 50 cents to produce each of those. If you produced 100, it costs you $1. So my answer to that is, how do you add a zero? Well, you add a zero to your profit, not necessarily to your price in this instance. So you keep the price the same, but because you're producing twice as many for the same cost of production, you actually add a zero to the profit. So I'm going to see this last one, and then I'm passing it to you, Junior. So I thought it meant sell it for less expensive, not less for cost of production. Gotcha. Yes. So from my side of the house, maybe Junior meant something different, but from the less expensive side of the house, like if it says cheaper, faster, better, if you can produce it for cheaper, then you can sell it for cheaper. And if you can sell it for cheaper and produce it for cheaper, then the competition can't compete. So you're adding a zero to profitability and to market share.
Right. So that's exactly what I was saying. The second part of what you just said. So yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like if you could produce something, just like Bobby was saying, so the cost of production is less, that means you could also sell it for less. Okay. And if you could sell it for less, you have a larger, what you call total addressable market, which means you have scale, which means that you could make a lot more money. I'll give you an example. Look at ChatGPT. Like if you are to produce a ChatGPT from scratch, like your own ChatGPT, like all of all of the AI large language models, all of this stuff, it will cost you like millions and millions of dollars, but they've made it available to literally billions of people at a very, very nominal price. So that's scale right there. So that's one example, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sell your stuff for less money. So for example, if it costs you, let's just say a website, if it's costing you, let's say $1,500 to produce a website, and then you're selling it for, let's say, 5K. If you can get the same website created for $500, you could keep your profit, or you could increase your profit margin by keeping your price the same at 5K, then you just made more money. So there's two ways to look at it. There's two ways to look at it, Dr. Michelle. And by the way, neither one is right or wrong. It all depends on your model. So you may be in a business where, if you're like us, if you're like an individual, you sell high prices, but you may also be in a business where you're selling more of a commodity that doesn't necessarily require high prices, and you could just achieve scale from multiple people. So neither is right or wrong. They both work. You have to recognize, like, what model are you in, what business model you're in, and then what works for you. Okay. All right. So let's get back on the leadership train. So we've spoken about leadership from the perspective of being a brand leader in the market. Let's talk about leadership from the perspective of the internal part, like team leadership. So for you, Bobby, what would you say defines a good team leader for you? Where does that begin?
Yes, this is great because this is actually deep to me. Like I've got this one written down, like as a part of my ethos. So this one for me is defined as someone who has a vision and the ability to convey that vision clearly to others in such a way that it inspires their cooperation. I'll give that to you guys one more time, just in case you all want that. So for me, leadership is a great leader is one who has a vision and the capacity to convey that vision clearly to others in such a way that it inspires their cooperation. So to me, a great leader is someone who sees a vision and has a understanding of how to get there. They have cultivated within themselves passion and belief and are capable of transferring that energy and vision, belief to others in such a way that it inspires the cooperation of others. And through that collective cooperation, inspiration, and aspiration towards a common goal, they are stronger, better, and more likely to succeed. So for me, that's where leadership begins. It begins with the vision, and then it moves to the capacity to convey the vision. Then it moves to the ability to inspire the vision into others. And then it ends with the ability to lead those whom you have inspired with a spirit of cooperation.
Very nice. So I agree with that definition 100%. I wrote down a couple words of what I think a good leader comprises of. So I wrote down vision, like you said. So definitely vision, definitely competency. So to me, you have to be competent. So you have to have a vision, but you have to be competent at allocating resources. So resources in the terms, like if we're talking about business, so in the context of company resources, to me, you have to be good at being able to allocate company resources, whether that is, human capital, or whether that is, money, stuff like that. So, because if you don't do that correctly, you're not gonna hit your goal. It doesn't matter how inspired you are. So I believe that a leader is somebody who walks in two worlds, Bobby. And those two worlds would be sort of the visionary world. So you're living in the future, but you're also living in the present. For example, you can speak the dream language that inspires people, that moves people, okay, that helps people to move forward, that aligns people with your mission, your vision, your culture, etc., etc. But you could also speak the logical language, like how we actually going to get there.
Yeah.
Because to me, if you tell me about a dream, but you don't tell me how we're going to get there, like there's no logic, then to me that's not really substantial. I don't know, different people are different, but to me that's not really substantial. Like you have to have a vision, but you have to actually know how we're going to get there. Or if you don't know 100%, at least you know how we're going to begin. Like you can speak both language. You can speak the logical language, you could also speak the dream language. To me, a good leader is somebody that could also evoke high levels of trust, because at the end of the day, it comes down to trust. Like, do you trust the person that is leading you? And I believe, to the extent that you trust that person, you're going to be inspired by, or you're going to move for that person, right? I also believe a good leader has good intention. So I think intention is very, very key, because from intention comes, stuff like empathy, like being able to relate to other people, being able to relate to your team members, being able to inspire people. Like if you're empathetic, if you could understand what people have gone through because you've gone through it yourself, or because you're just an empathetic person and you understand people, then that makes you more trustworthy, and it inspires people to give more to you and to do more for you.
Hmm.
I wrote down communication. So every great leader has to know how to communicate. Like there's no great leader that I know who does not know how to speak, who does not know how to communicate, who does not know how to talk to people, how to inspire people, how to move people, how to read people. So you have to know how to communicate, okay? And those are some of the tenets of what I think make a good leader. My next question to you is, if somebody's on their leadership journey, because I believe that we're all leaders to some extent. Like you're the leader of your family, I'm the leader of my family, and everybody looking, you're the leader of your space, of your families, of your businesses, etc., etc. How does one begin to develop that leadership? Like Bobby, there's a saying that people believe that some leaders are born, and then people believe that some leaders are groomed, or some leaders are, developed. So number one, do you believe that leaders are just born, like you're just born a leader? Or do you believe that leadership can be cultivated, or both? And if so, how does one begin to cultivate that?
Wow. I love this question, Junior. Now you're in my bag. You're in my backyard. I love this. I love this space because 12 years military experience plus my business experience and being a father, a husband, I really had to understand these things in order to move forward. So I'm going to give you guys my playbook, what I use and what I believe in, answer Junior's question. So first, are leaders born, or are leaders built, so to speak? I think everybody is born with leadership capacity, but not everyone cultivates those traits. I think everybody's born with the capacity to lead, but I think not all people are put in the position to develop. And if you don't develop these capacities, it's potential unrealized. It's unrealized potential. So that's my perspective on that. Now, how to develop it, how to build it and grow it. For me, I have what I call the 12 chambers. 12 chambers. If you do these 12 things, you will be an elite
Shameless.
leader and executor based on my personal experience. And I have done this for several years now. So the qualities you need to have: wisdom, humility, integrity, leadership, love, power, poise, persistence, excellence, diligence, balance, and discipline. One more time. Give you guys the 12 chambers one more time: wisdom, humility, integrity, leadership, love, power, poise, persistence, excellence, diligence, balance, and discipline. Now, I'm not going to go deep into these. I'm just going to give you guys the wave tops of how, because each of these have a definition assigned to them, but we're just going to hit the wave tops and keep it pushing. So, wisdom, you need to know where you're going and how you plan to get there and the sequence in which is required. That's that. Moving on. With humility, you need to know yourself and be willing to improve. Moving on. Integrity. Be true to you, know who you are, and do not compromise, but grow. Do not compromise, but grow. Humility, integrity, leadership. I gave you guys leadership. Love. Love is about self and others. Like if you cannot sacrifice, if you cannot give, you can't, it's very hard to love. So be willing to sacrifice and be willing to give. Power. Power is the ability to channel energy. So if you can't channel energy, if you can't emote properly and control, you're in a tough spot. Poise. Poise is what you need in order to perform under pressure. If you can't maintain poise under pressure, then your pipes are going to burst instead of the diamonds that should be produced. Persistence. If you cannot persist, you'll rarely finish. A lot of things are marathons, and you're going to have to persist in order to finish. Excellence. Excellence is doing everything you can at your current ability, continuing to seek self-improvement and greater degrees of mastery. Balance or diligence, before we get to balance. So diligence is working with the right spirit for consistent periods over time. So anybody can work and do a bad job, but diligence is working with a faith in which you cannot fail. You do that and you work consistently and keep the faith, you'll be all right. Excellence is, we covered excellence, the way you do things. Balance. So balance is about, I call it harmonic integration. Everything in your life should be working harmonically, much like a solar system. There's not going to be like a scale balance, but there can be a harmonic organization, a harmonic integration of activities. And then lastly, you've got discipline. So my core definition for discipline is doing those things that have been predetermined as necessary, despite your preference for doing them. So once you've determined that it's necessary to achieve the goal, set it, let it, forget it, never regret it, do it no matter how you feel about it. You do those 12 things, in my experience, you will develop your leadership.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Bobby, I think you might have to put that on some kind of card or something, man. That was absolutely amazing. Guys, we're due for one more break. If you've enjoyed this so far, put some flames. I see people putting some of those things in the chat. So great. So Dr. Michelle put it there for you. The 12 Chambers of Leadership by Mr. Bobby Stealth. Guys, we'll be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned. This is Breakfast with the Brand.
There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 plus 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 plus 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 plus 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a 0 to you, you can add a 0 to the marketplace. You can add a 0 to the value that you bring. So you can add a 0 to your family, add a 0 to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a 0. Add a 0 to your competence, add a 0 to your confidence. This is about adding a 0 in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow. So when you're young, mommy tells you to play nice. Play nice, Timmy. Let all of the other kids play too. But in business, it's not about playing nice. In business, it's about winning. It's about adding multiple zeros to your revenue. Now, of course, your staff wins. And when you win, other people win. However, when it comes to competition, you absolutely must dominate. You can't play for participation, and you can't play just to get along or just to get by, because business is serious. Business will help you to change the world, or the world will change you. Your people will either win or your people will lose based on your level of leadership, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how much you know about dominating.
All right, guys, so we are back, and Bobby just gave us a clinic there on the 12 chambers of leadership. Bobby, that was absolutely amazing, man. It's been a phenomenal call. It's been a phenomenal call so far. Guys, put it in the chat. What has been your main takeaway? So if you had like just one or two main takeaways from today, what would that be? Go ahead and put it in the comments. And I see those flames coming in. Yes, sir. So Bobby, so we're into like the last 10 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
What is something about branding that you want to say to the audience? So for example, you've given us the establishment of the brand leadership, or the development of leadership using the 12 chambers. Let's talk about the development of brands using the branded like a leader method. So what would you say to the audience as far as that is concerned? Like some of your key takeaways. We have many people here who have gone through the course. Some people are thinking about going through it. What would you say are some of your, we don't have to go through the whole thing. Like we shouldn't go through everything, but like just 1 to 3, like 1 to 3 tips or just nuggets of wisdom that you've taken away.
One thing that I say to Shaan till this day is something that he said to me and a lot of others. And I believe he said it in Branded Like a Leader. He said, the reason you're here is not the reason you're here, or why you're here, why you think you're here. Why you think you're here is not why you're here. The reason you're here is not why you're here. What does that mean? That means that your brand, as it's developing, is unknown to you. It's like, it's almost like a baby. Like when a baby comes out of the womb, you don't know who that baby's gonna be. They have like tendencies. You know who you want the baby to be. You know how you want the baby to operate in society, but you don't know who it's gonna be or what it's gonna be. You only figure that out through cultivation, raising, training, watching, and giving space. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from Branded Like a Leader, is that you give birth to the brand, but you don't manufacture it. The brand is alive, you know, it breathes, it lives, it develops, it grows, it has opinions, you know. It's like, I don't know who said it, but my last note would be, oh my goodness, I can't remember how they said it, but it's something like when you build a brand or when you build a business, you give it life until it takes on a life of its own. So, like the entrepreneur breathes into it, pours money into it, and does all of this stuff. But when it becomes a business, like the entrepreneur's job is to inseminate, so to speak, is to give the idea, to put it into the world. But the business, as it becomes full grown, takes a life of its own. And that's something that I learned about branding. Let-
Very nice. Very nice. So if I had to pinpoint a couple of things for me, I've been in a very unique position. So I went through the course, but I've also trained on the program and with many, many people. So what I will say to people is that if you want to be a master of anything, you have to be a master of the basics. If you want to be a master of anything, you have to be a master of the basics. So I say to people who are considering branding or who have gone through the program or who are still going through it that to me, 60% of the work or 70% of the work is in week number one, which is figuring out who you are. I've seen it so many times, Bobby. People, they run off, they try to build brands, but they have not really figured out the starting point, like who they are, what they represent, what is their vision, what are their MVPs, stuff like that. They haven't figured that stuff out. And when you try to, like you say, bring a brand into the world and you haven't figured that out, nothing goes right. Like if the foundation is wrong, nothing else is right. So taking the time out to figure that out is the key. A lot of people believe that a brand is, they think it's a logo. Okay, so your brand is a logo, or your brand is a t-shirt or something like that. That's what most people think of when you say branding. So people will tell me, well, I want to launch a brand. The other day, somebody came to me and they told me that they wanted to launch a brand for something on the island with regards to like carnival, stuff like that. And I said, okay. And as we started talking, they started talking about t-shirts and I want to sell this shirt, I want to sell that, I want to do this, I want to sell. I said to them, well, like, what does it represent? Like, they believe that the brand is only the tangible things, like the caps, the merchandise, but that's not what it is. The brand starts as who you are at your core, right? The foundation, the five W's, 5W framework, who you are, what you do, who you do it for, etc., etc. And then it becomes the merchandise, it becomes the logo, it becomes the website, it becomes, or it takes on the form of all of these various things. So I would say that if you're considering starting a brand, then you want to make sure that you get the foundation right. Because if you get the foundation wrong, then literally everything else is wrong from that point. Everything. So I would say, save your time, save yourself the time, save yourself the effort, save yourself the capital, the money, and figure out how to get it right. And if you are considering, then you might want to check out Branded Like a Leader, just as an option for you to consider. All right, so Bobby, we're into the final 2 minutes. What is something that you'd like to say? Any closing comments for the audience?
Yeah, as a winner, as a leader, let me say it this way: as a leader, you want to win because as a leader that wins, you produce a culture of winning. And that's something that was very important to me in the Marine Corps. Like we lost very few battles, and that poured a lot into our self-esteem, into our self-perception, into our self-belief. And if you are building a brand, but you're losing, so to speak, every day on the scoreboard, it's really hard to inspire people to follow you and to feel like they can win there. So you got to win and lead so that you can aspire a culture of winning.
Amazing. All right, guys, this has been Breakfast with the Brand. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back on Tuesday. We'll be live on Tuesday. On Monday, we'll be playing a recording. On Tuesday, we'll be live. But of course, the recording is going to be absolutely amazing. So please check it out. If you have any questions or concerns, you could go to www.shaanrise.com, fill out the form, or you could message me directly on any platform, as well as Bobby. So have a phenomenal Saturday, and let's grow.
Let's grow.